Hello and welcome to the Brilliant People podcast by executive search firm Assertitude. I'm your host, Linnea Jungnelius. Today's guest is Dr. Allison Barber. She's best known for her leadership as president of the Indiana Fever, where she drove explosive growth and made national headlines by drafting NCAA all-time leading scorer Caitlin Clark, a move that electrified the WNBA and inspired an entire generation of fans. But Allison's story started far from the court, as a first-grade teacher with a deep belief in what young people are capable of. That belief took her to the Pentagon during one of the most pivotal moments in U.S. history, and now to the front lines of something even bigger. Marvella Academy, a first-of-its-kind youth sports and leadership campus built entirely for girls. In this conversation, we trace Allison's journey from classrooms to courtside to founding something the world hasn't even seen yet, and explore what it really means to lead with conviction and with heart. Allison, I've been so looking forward to this. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Glad to be with you today.
Wonderful. Allison, I want to start with your time at the Fever, perhaps because the transformation you led there was remarkable. You stepped in at a time when the team was rebuilding on the court and needed a fresh identity off the court too. Culturally, commercially, operationally, it was a big lift. How did you start and how did you go about that?
I was fortunate to get a call on a Friday asking if I would come over and talk and maybe consider being the president of the Fever. And I think the reason maybe was because I've had the great opportunity of building brands. So prior to the Fever, I started WGU. It's Western Governors University for the state of Indiana, online university. It was brand new, never been done before. And so my sense of things is what they needed was somebody who could come and reimagine the brand of the Fever in the community and with corporate partners, while the coach and the GM were trying to reimagine the locker room and the actual play on the court. And so that's a different skill set than you might necessarily find in sports. But I was thrilled to do it. And what it took was really just defining what the opportunities were. And I think this is a key in leadership. What is your role as the leader? It was really defining what my role was, and I think that was to reimagine what the Fever stood for. At the time, the only professional women's team in the state of Indiana, what the impact could be, and then designing a strategic plan around building the best team and franchise we could for our current reality. That's super hard as a leader because as leaders, we see what it can be down the road, but you can't get there immediately. And so putting pieces in place, we wrote a strategic plan. It had 3 C's. Our job was to build a championship culture. I couldn't build a championship team. That wasn't my job, but I could help build the culture. And so we really, we built this plan. Commit, compete, and contribute. 3 C's. How do we focus on those 3 C's that would lead to a championship culture? I think that's the role of a leader, is to have the vision, build the strategy with your team, and then, work as hard as you can to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you walked in and you started, like all great leaders, with listening.
Yes.
And really understanding, why people are so loyal and such big fans of this brand, and really bubbling up those ideas to the top. And then that's how you then cascaded and you really structured that 3-component plan. Yes. And then creating the conditions for excellence to exist, to thrive in.
Yeah. So my least favorite business principle is that, the proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I actually hate that principle. It's true, but I hate it because I want to go fast and far.
Yeah.
But you can't do it when you're rebuilding a brand and recreating. And the Fever they were a championship team. I mean, this is an amazing family-owned company that is terrific. So they just needed a restart. But that means you have to be patient to allow the team to come along with you, and that's how you can go far.
Yeah. And then, you went very far. Then came the Caitlin Clark moment, and from the outside, it felt really electric. And from the inside, it was clear that you had built that foundation to be ready for it when it came. What did it take to prepare the organization to really step into that kind of moment and then hold it when it came?
Well, it felt electric from the inside, too. So what you were feeling on the outside, we also felt on the inside. Linnea, it's what you do in business is you really have a strategic plan. And it's probably what I learned at the White House when I worked there and at the Pentagon is you scenario plan. If this happens, we'll prepare for this way. If this happens, we prepare this way. So until December, we didn't know if we would get the first pick. We didn't know if she'd go into the draft. So there were different scenarios that you have to be ready for, always hoping that it works the way that it did work for the Fever. And we're thrilled for our city. We're thrilled for Caitlin. This city loves her. And it's a great fit. But what you have to do as the leader is say, well, okay, what are the 3 scenarios? Maybe there are 4, maybe there are 2, but what are the scenarios? How do we build the team to be prepared and do what we can to make sure we're ready? You have to have the right team in place. You have to have the right merchandise ordered. You have to have the right social media team equipped and ready. And so I think over the course of my tenure at the Fever, we were always working our 3 C's: commit, compete, contribute. How do you commit to be the best people you can be? And what's your job? Be the best at it.
And adding the 4th C, Caitlin.
Yes, I know. Who knew? It's a good thing her name started with the C.
Only drafting C's.
That's exactly right.
So you've now built a lot of the team. How did you then build off of that momentum to keep it going and to continue the growth?
It's interesting when we got the draft pick, number 1 pick, I started asking other leaders, have you ever had a transformational moment where you went from, you put the numbers on it, 0 to 100, whatever. I mean, it's 25 years old. It's a strong franchise, but it was going to be an overnight transformation. And so I asked business leaders, have you in your business ever had an overnight transformational moment? How do we prepare for that? Mm-hmm. And mostly they said no, they hadn't. So then I had to figure out, well, who would answer that question? Yes. And so I talked to a previous governor and a former governor, and I talked to a tech owner who took his company public, because they could both answer the question yes. And so I went and met with them. And I said, what advice do you have for me as the leader of this franchise who's about to experience an amazing transformation? The governor said, do first things first. He said, as leaders, we see the potential. We see where we want to get to, but you have to do first things first. You got to let Caitlin put a ball through the bucket. That was a good discipline, like first things first. The rest will come. Mm-hmm. The tech owner said, it will be difficult because you have to go from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality.
Yep.
And that's number one, not everybody can scale. So you might have people on your team that can't do it. Mm-hmm. But your job as the leader is to shepherd them to that mindset, which was, I thought, great advice for me from both of those people to think about this moment from a business standpoint. My role as a leader, though, is how do you take this moment and maximize it for long-term success?
Yeah. I love that you went out to your network, and I think that's just such a good lesson in and of itself. Yeah. Use the people that you trust around you, and if you don't have that today, go build it.
Yes.
I think it was really interesting to hear that it wasn't another sports president, but it was somebody in a different field, a different sector entirely that was able to provide kind of transferable insights and guidance at a moment like that.
Yes, it was very helpful.
You created something that is really special at the Fever, and this deep sense of alignment on the floor and in the front office and also out in the market. And so I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you've learned about building belief, not just in the player, but in that shared vision.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Linnea, when I moved into this role, I said, my goal, Indiana has 92 counties. And I said, I want to make sure that we have Fever fans in all 92 counties. And someone said to me, well, that won't happen. So, as you know, you do this work all the time. The leaders have to turn a deaf ear to negativity. You have to look for what the truth is so that you're smart and not, foolish. But you can't be pulled down by that. And then somebody said to me, well, you'll have more fans when you start winning. And I said to them, well, I disagree. I'm a Cub fan. So if you like the Cubs, you don't like the Cubs because they win. You like the Cubs because you believe in the culture of the Cubs. Mm-hmm. And I said, if we work hard to build the right culture, we'll have fandom whether we win or we lose. So what I immediately did is I broke our fans into 3 groups in my mind. The moved fans, the unmovable, and the movable middle. So think about that framework. The move fans, they've been fans for 25 years. So then you also have the unmovable. And no matter what you do, and this is true in business, and people who are leaders and great salespeople, they think, oh, if I just get one more conversation, I can convince them to buy my product, to be for my team. It doesn't work that way. They are unmovable. And as a leader, you say, okay, where do I invest my time? I take care of my moved. I out-thank them. I love them. I engage them. I appreciate them. You never want to lose a moved fan or a client. You're unmovable, you say, not today. Your secret energy, secret sauce is the movable middle. If I can get to this group of fans and share with them what we're doing with the fever or what we'll talk about with Marvella, I have the opportunity to convert them into the moved. So that's, as leaders, you've got to identify. You can't win everybody, and that's okay. But good fans that will stick with you through thick and thin are because they believe what you believe. The other fans are episodic fans, and we like them too. But you have to accept that they're not all going to be loyal, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's not your focus.
That's right.
Exactly. How did you identify that movable middle? Because if I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking, oh, that's a really great framework. I want to do that for my enterprise or my franchise.
Yes.
What was the process of doing that?
Well, data and research. It's so much easier today. Years and years ago, we might do focus groups. But today you have, a lot of data through social media and customer behaviors that you can analyze that and you can target it. So using data to your benefit is a smart strategy. But I am a retail politician, so I do spend a lot of time with people, learning, listening. I wrote personal thank you notes to over 400 people who have been season ticket holders because they stuck with us through the difficult. So once you start engaging with people, you learn so much from them that it helps shape that strategy.
Yeah, so stay really close to your fans or your customers and always keep an ear to the ground.
Yes, because they'll teach you a lot. And you'll also learn where you shouldn't spend your time. I spoke at an event and somebody got up and said, well, I just don't like women's sports. So the salesperson would say, let me convince them why they should. The strategic person says, okay, next, let me go talk to somebody who might like women's sports.
Look, the best word in sales is next.
Yes.
If you really know where to spend your time and be thoughtful about time and attention and energy, I think.
That's right. But it's super hard for people because leaders and successful people don't want to lose. And so saying next means you're accepting the fact that you're not going to close that deal, you're not going to win that fan, and that takes intelligence at a different level and confidence.
Yeah, real leadership. Again, I'm curious, with that movable middle, what helped you to shift them over into the moved bucket?
We did a lot of community events, and we showed up, and I think that's another lesson that I learned that probably when I worked at the Pentagon, is that you see front and center how leaders show up. I'm not going to delegate engagement to other people, because if I sit in my office all day, I'm not understanding and learning what the customer needs, what the fan needs, and what's important to them. So we did a lot of community events. It teaches you a lot, and then you start to identify what matters and where the movable middle, what's interesting to them.
Show up, people. That's really what it's about at the end of the day.
Yes. Goodness happens when people connect, and they can do things that you just can't do if you stay in your office. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I love that. Get out, spend the time, engage. Look, you talked a lot about moving people in the middle, but when you do step into a team that's lost momentum or confidence, where do you begin, and what is the way to shape that winning culture that you talked about?
I think the best leaders have optimism, and you're willing to see what can be. That's contagious, and it should be. When you walk into a situation where things are difficult and you have optimism, that's rooted in data and fact and not just Pollyanna. You can't build a business around that. Optimism matters. Showing up matters. I would go to the practices. I'd travel with the team so they knew I believed in them. So vision, optimism, belief with a plan.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of times we meet companies and they've stalled and growth isn't happening anymore. And, you think you need to have this like super smart, strategic, complex plan. And what I'm hearing from you and, just pattern matching what other people have said is it's going back to basics,
Yes.
fundamentals around human experience, the people on your team, but also the fans and the audience and how you relate to people.
Yeah, that's right. And having an open mind toward different skill sets, different loyalties and passion. It's easy to lead people who are exactly like you. It's more energizing and exhilarating to figure out how to lead people who have great diversity and interests and passion, and it's a great challenge.
How do you go about building bridges and rapport and camaraderie and like commitment and alignment with people who are different from you, and maybe specifically people that you've hired onto your team?
Well, I try to hire people on my team that are different than me on purpose. I'm a big fan of the Gallup Strength Finders, so everybody on my team always takes the Strength Finders. It immediately helps me focus on people's strengths and how to play to them. So I spend a lot of time trying to get to know my people. I had 2,000 people under me at the Pentagon. You can't do that with 2,000 people, but you can do it with your direct reports and your leadership team. And the more you invest in people, what you are modeling is I'm investing in you. Therefore, it's important for you to invest in your direct reports. As the leader, you've got to set that tone.
So first and foremost, focus on the strengths, and that creates the momentum and the energy for people
Yes.
to then perform at their best. We're talking a lot about leadership here, and for the owners and the investors and the leaders that are listening, especially those that are hiring for the president role or maybe stepping into it for the first time themselves, what is it really like to sit in that top seat, and what matters most in that role?
Your personal integrity matters most. When you move into big jobs, you have a lot of people telling you what you should do. Fire everybody in the first 60 days if they don't fit. And you can read a zillion different books on leadership and how to run a business. It was one of the interesting things to me in my career pursuit to see that there are different leadership styles and they all have success. What I've learned is you've got to have personal integrity and you have to figure out what aligns with who you are. Because otherwise it comes out phony. It's like any other habit. If it's not aligned with your value system and what is important to you, you can't sustain it. I have this a little bit of a pet peeve when people will say, well, everybody's replaceable. And people say that with like a false humility. I'm the president, but I'm replaceable. It's like, well, you better not be, because then you might be wasting our time. You better bring a certain skill set and vision and leadership that makes you special. When you leave your job, people should miss something about you leaving. But every job is fillable, but people shouldn't be replaceable. Does that make sense?
It does, and it reminds me of another great line that I love, which is, be so good they can't ignore you.
That's right. Yes.
And when it came to building your team, we talked a little bit about this. Who did you surround yourself with, and how did you make some of those high-stakes calls around people?
I've had 8 careers, and what you realize immediately when you move into a role is to figure out where you can have impact. Where can I have immediate impact? Where can I have delayed impact? When you look at your team, where's your role to help those grow, or where's your job to bring in new people? That takes some time to understand, I think, as a leader. You do that by spending time, listening to people, learning from people, understanding the culture of the company you move into. Some cultures I've gone into, and they are very entrepreneurial and say, we're bringing you in, mix it up, turn it around. Some cultures you go into, and it's like, slow step it. We don't want to move that fast. We don't want to make those kind of changes yet. So you have to really assess what you can influence immediately, what's delayed, what you can control. And I surround myself with people from different career fields, because that's how you can keep sharp and learn and see what are they doing. What are they doing in the fast food industry to keep their customers happy? What can I learn from that to bring to my franchise? And then I have a great group of other WNBA presidents that were very collaborative, and that was helpful too.
So again, go in listening, building their relationships,
Yeah.
and ask better questions. Do they have the answers? Do they not? Do they actually see where the gaps are?
Yes.
And I think it's pretty revealing.
And get their buy-in.
Yeah.
I mean, people are smart. I think that's what I just keep reminding myself. People are really smart. So what can I learn from them? I wanted to launch a program when I worked at the Pentagon, and somebody said, that was my idea 15 years ago. And they were a little defensive. And they gave me their briefing book. I said, well, that gives me confidence that it's a good idea. Let's work together now to make it happen.
Now, to understand all these chapters that you've been through, I'd love to go back to where your story begins for a moment. How did you grow up, and how did those experiences shape who you are today, and how did you learn to carry a high degree of responsibility so early?
I grew up in Northwest Indiana, and so like every Hoosier, I played basketball. And my parents bought me a basketball hoop, and I was a little kid, and my dad would always say, take it to the hoop, kid. Take it to the hoop. And what it was this mantra. To be honest, he was probably saying, get closer and you might make it. I wasn't that great. But what he really taught me was a strategy for life. If you take it to the hoop, you have a goal, you have drive, you're willing to take risk. If you miss a layup, people make fun of you because you should make it. So you're taking that risk. And you've got the ball. And so having the ball means you have the responsibility to make the shot. That shaped my mentality of taking risk, having drive. My mom, on the other hand, was always saying, check your motives. Are you doing it for yourself or for someone else? So to have parents, terrific parents, that would speak into you in those two ways as a child, take it to the hoop, check your motives. And not that I always get it right, but those are my guiding principles. So I went on to play, not basketball, but to play softball and tennis in college. But just that kind of drive shaped me and helped me develop a competitive spirit, but a competitive spirit that is collaborative, because that's the motivation.
And from there, you really launched your career by starting as a teacher.
Yes.
And eventually you found yourself leading at the Pentagon. That's not exactly a straight line.
It's not.
How did that transition happen, and what opened that door, and what guided you through it? Take us through your journey a little bit more.
I was teaching school in Northwest Indiana. My husband was a practicing attorney. The first Gulf War broke out, and he came home and said he wanted to serve the country. We both quit our jobs. That took us to New Jersey, his first assignment. And I started volunteering for the Red Cross, and then they asked me if I would consider moving to D.C., the headquarters, to run a program there, a marketing program. So we moved to D.C. for that. And I just have had these wonderful people around me that just give me opportunities, maybe even earlier than they should have, but I'm so grateful. And so we're supposed to go to Germany with the Army, and that got transferred and got canceled. So I was without a job because I had left my job. I started my own PR firm because I was volunteering at the Red Cross still because I love it. I was babysitting for my girlfriend, and I was visiting another girlfriend who was dying of brain cancer. So I needed to find a job, but I didn't want to give up those three important things to me. So I just started my own business. Because to the hoop, but what's your motivation? I was fortunate enough to do some work for a woman at a PR firm who then went on to be in the Bush administration. And they told her she could take one person with her. And she asked me to go with her to the Pentagon. I thought she meant for a meeting. I had a note on my desk, want to go with me to the Pentagon. So I thought we were going for a meeting. It was a job. That was my job offer. It was on the smallest Post-it note ever. And I went to work at the Pentagon with her in strategic communication. I've never been so busy in my life, which you would hope for the Department of Defense, that everybody there is working hard on your behalf, and they are. My first couple weeks on the job, she asked me to go meet with a 4-star general to write a communication plan on missile defense. I didn't know anything about it. I barely knew how to get to his office. The Pentagon's kind of amazed. Exactly. And I thought to myself, I've never watched Star Wars or Star Trek. I don't even know what missile defense is. But it goes back to your question.
Could you even Google it back then?
No. Yes, thank you. You could not. But it goes back to your earlier, how do you do this career? And you build on your competencies. And as I was walking to his office, I realized I don't need to know missile defense. He needs to know missile defense. I need to know how to do strategic communication. And that's how your path and your career can evolve, is if you stay focused on what your competencies are, always developing them, growing them, building them. And then on the morning of 9/11, I was in a plane flying to Atlanta to meet with an ad agency. And the goal of the meeting was to do a new ad campaign to encourage more people to serve in the military. I land in Atlanta, take the train, get to the office, and the woman there tells me the country's under attack. I rent a van, drive back to D.C. to get back to the Pentagon to get to work the next morning. And I can't get to my office, but walking past 6 armed guards and then going out to the crash site, and the building's still on fire. And in a moment, you just realize, like everybody in America, like, this is surreal. It's different. And You need a different skill set. So when you think about what we were doing prior to 9/11, how do you build missile defense and how do you do these great things for the country? And then 9/11 happens and your focus immediately gets clarified and everybody was rowing in the same direction. And it was really powerful. What was interesting to me, Linnea, though, is within weeks, we had so many people at recruiting stations signing up to serve in the country. And so from my, little chair, I was like, 2 weeks ago, we were trying to get a campaign to get people to serve. Now we have so many people. Americans are wonderful people. I hope people never forget how wonderful the men and women who volunteer to serve in our military are. The lines went out around the block to serve in the military. And so it's a transformational moment.
An incredible moment, a pivotal moment, and one that you met with such sense of mission and grace. And as you think about how you led through that, how did it shape your ability to operate under pressure and also with clarity when there's chaos?
The clarity was in front of you because there were things that had to happen. There were wonderful leaders that I learned from, the Secretary of Defense, the President. We were all, adjusting and adapting, but it was good because I was surrounded by people who were older and who had lived through Vietnam, who had served in World War II. Like all of a sudden you can really get perspective that was helpful. And that is, I think, as a leader, surrounding yourself with people that give you perspective because what's right in front of you almost seems overwhelming until you go and grab a cup of coffee with somebody who's already been through that moment. And so one day I'm in the White House and Dr. Rice wanted somebody to go to Iraq to fix a problem. And I'm sitting around the table with a lot of people that I thought should probably go to Iraq and solve that problem. And my boss said, well, Allison should do it. And next thing you know, I'm in Iraq in a war zone. Like you don't prepare for those things, but you rely on the people around you and work ethic and dedication and discipline and focus on what needs to happen, and you accomplish a mission.
One of the messages that I'm hearing that I think is really transferable to any type of situation where you're under pressure or some crisis of some sort is this philosophy around trust in your leadership and trust in your team.
Yes.
Like you're in it together and you'll get through it together. So believe and lean on each other.
That's right. But not everybody can scale, so you want it to all work that way. It's not always that way. And so sometimes you have to fill in for people. Sometimes you have to change your team in the middle of the crisis because not everyone is built for crisis. And that's fair.
We've talked about a moment of great explosive growth and transformation. Mm-hmm. We've talked about early beginnings around, teaching and creating belief and sense of mission. And we've talked about leading through turmoil and leading through great pivotal moments. So now I want to take all that and I want to talk about what you're building now, which I'm so excited about because Marvella Academy, it's bold, it's visionary, and it's long overdue. What made you and Glenn and Lou decide this has to exist? Let's start with where the idea came from and what pulled you into it.
The mission pulled me in, and the team that Glenn Tilley, our founder, created. And so you think about 3 years ago, Glenn, his daughter played sports. He had firsthand experience of what the disparities were for female athletes versus male athletes. Glenn's an athlete himself, so really has this sense of the power of sport and then the opportunity to make it better for girls. And so Glenn and Lou and Karen DeSantis really shaped this mission 3 years ago. You might say even before it was popular and on the front page of every paper around women's sports and the future. Glenn's competencies have been terrific with experiential marketing and building out the Cal Ripken baseball experiences, so knowing how sports can change lives, knowing how doing it to the best-in-class level. Glenn and Karen did that, and Lou with his broadcasting background, and then Julie Ragsdale here in Indiana, just coming around saying, what if? What if we actually did something excellent for girls? They brought in Tamika Catchings, who I worked with at the Fever, and is a dear friend and one-of-a-kind athlete and person. She asked me if I would meet with Glenn and Lou and Karen and talk about this new idea in Indiana. When I met with them, I realized that this was the mission that mattered the most. And so it was an easy pivot to say, let's get together and see how we can create this, the first of its kind in the country, just for girls. What would it look like to give girls an experience where we say, boy, we're glad you play sports. We're even happier that you have an opportunity to develop in leadership, resiliency and grit, mental health and nutrition, the whole being of a girl. And what can we do to help make that happen? And so Marvella inspired, named for Marvella By, she inspired her husband Birch By to write Title IX. So as Hoosiers, we're very proud of the fact that we are the birthplace of Title IX. How do we pay tribute to that? Through Marvella, naming our campus after Marvella, but then opening up the door, not just for the top athletes, but for all girls who are athletes. And then launching a scholarship program called Nancy's Dream for Glenn and Lou's mom, who worked several jobs as a single mom to give her boys the opportunity to play sports, which led to college careers. I mean, we know this formula, and it works. And so how do we peel that back and say, now let's take this formula and be intentional and assertive and unapologetic of saying we're going to create pathways for girls to be successful. And that's what we'll do at Marvella.
I love that framework around the mission that mattered most, and that's the North Star for all of you. I know you're also deep in some of the research and the science around this.
We do love a lot of data and analysis and research at Marvella, as you might imagine. So whether it's with the Aspen group and Project Play around the national goal of getting 63% of kids to play sports by 2030. Why? Because it leads to better mental health. CDC, 1 out of 5 kids are dealing with depression. How do you mitigate that? Get kids active. It's one of the ways you can do it. So you'll notice there's a theme, like we're going to do our part. We can't solve all the problems, but man, we're going to do our part. Get kids playing more than one sport. We'll have immersion where kids will have this experience to play many sports when we're traveling around with Marvella Mobile, our mobile unit, because they make better grades in school. They develop different muscle groups. They become healthier. Working with IU Lab and with Purdue and our university partners to say, what do we know about the physiology of girls and how should we train for that? We're working with Positive Coaching Alliance. How do we help people learn how to coach children? You don't coach an 8-year-old the way you coach an 18-year-old or a 28-year-old. So that's all of this research comes to play for us that we say we now have a campus where we can raise the bar. 94% of C-suite executives, female C-suite executives, played sports. Okay, well, let's think about that for a minute.
94%.
Why? That's right. Well, you played sports,
yeah,
right?
Gymnast.
So what did you learn as a gymnast that helped you become a successful professional? That's what we're focused on at Marvella because that's real. And the majority of us will never be a professional athlete. So how do we help the girls coming through Marvella to be successful humans? That's pretty special.
It is. And look, for myself personally, I have accidentally run a few marathons,
Yes.
and I'm training for Berlin now. And I was talking to Glenn a few days ago, and I was sharing one of the aspects for me personally is it teaches you to show up when you don't want to.
That's right.
And do the work.
Right.
You can feel it in your body, the way that it shifts your energy and clears your
Right.
head. So I love the focus on the mental health aspects too. And, it's a pretty shocking stack. 1 in 5, that's a lot.
Yes. Yes. And that's just one of many statistics that we look at with kids, but girls in particular who deal with suicide thoughts and body image issues. And the research is there. I have a sign on my wall. It says, be a voice, not an echo. It's probably why when I met with Glenn, turned my head. He's an optimistic believer in what can be. A lot of people like to complain about what isn't. People like Glenn and Lou and Karen, they talk about what can be, what it should be. That's inspiring.
We've already talked about some of this. Like girls' sports has been treated like an afterthought with poor resources and tough travel, no real development model. Could you go a little deeper into how Marvella changes all of that?
We start with a philosophical approach that we will be best in class, period. That's a non-negotiable. When girls travel for travel sports, they travel with a parent and typically another sibling. We're creating a culture and an environment up at Marvella that says it's fun to be together on a weekend with your family and to play sports and do more. So when girls come into this campus, they're going to say, somebody cares about me. And we like that a lot. The facility will be designed just for girls. And I'm talking about the detail that we're putting into this. So, for instance, one of the takeaways is girls prefer to be at tables that are round, not rectangle. Well, why do you think that is? Community. So this is the kind of energy and effort we're using data and research to help shape the design of Marvella, because if you're going to be best in class, that's what you do. And so the girls will come, parents will come, they'll say this is safe, it's purposeful, it's best in class, and it's meaningful. And we're going to build the best campus for girls in Indiana, and then we're going to build 4 more around the country. So it's national. This will take over the country.
It's a movement, and the level of thought, like
Yes.
that's such a good example. By the way, does anyone like a square table?
I don't know. We're sitting at one.
For podcasting, yes. Look, this is not just a feel-good mission. Like you mentioned, 94% of women in the C-suite played sports.
Yes.
Families are spending
$40 billion a year on youth sports.
Wow.
$40 billion with a B.
I think the interesting part is the infrastructure hasn't caught up. So what is the commercial opportunity here, and how are you thinking about growth and scale for the organization?
Marvella in Indiana will attract people from all over the country. That we already know through research and analysis of the market and travel sports and what's happening. So Indiana will have over 400,000 people through our campus by year 7. It's real and it's big and it's a great business. And people, I think, sometimes look at it through a different lens than we do, but it's not about investing in sports. It's about investing in girls who will go on to lead in this country. That's interesting, isn't it? That will happen in Indiana, and then it will happen around the nation. And so the investment opportunity, it's a good business and it's a good mission. That's a special combination.
The purpose, and I don't even want to call it profit, but, 2 P's who are dealing with 4 C's before.
Yes,
So
yes. Listen, this country runs on profit. Let's not downplay that,
exactly.
right? Well,
Yeah.
Linnea, we'll have this amazing business of Marvella, partnering it with our Success Center, which is Marvella Foundation. So we'll do both things. You can do more good if you have more resources.
I don't know why it's a secret, but I think the secret is the giver gets it all.
Yeah, that's right.
You've secured upwards of $30 million, which is unprecedented support from the state and the county of Indiana. And I know you're in the final stages of concluding a $100 million private capital funding. Yes. What did that journey look like for you and the team? And as you reflect on those conversations, what do you believe has made those stakeholders convicted in your vision and back it?
I think investors look for a good business deal, and they should. It should be a good business model. A lot of us invest in nonprofits that are doing good work because we believe in the mission. That's philanthropy. That's awesome. This country runs on that. But what we're talking about is a business. You've got to meet the numbers, and you have to be a model that will show that there's money to be made for investors in the right and proper way based on a philosophical approach that we are growing and developing future leaders of America. So if I'm a business, I want to invest in Marvella because I'm hoping that you're training my future employees and my future leaders, and we will be. So all of those pieces have to align, and they do, and we're grateful for the people that have the vision. It's hard to be the first at anything. Mm-hmm. And so for people to have that vision and belief and come and stand alongside of us has been really humbling and satisfying and exciting.
Those are very real and obvious components. And I also wonder about this component that's maybe also not only the mission and the model, but the moment. Mm-hmm. Because as I think about the dynamics around the environment right now and infrastructure catching up,
yes.
the excitement and the real followership around women's sports, everything that's happening around media that's supporting and furthering that. And then you think about where investment dollars are going as well, and even development leagues. There is also this, this is all happening at the right time.
Yes, I think that's right. First of all, I'm really proud of Glenn and Lou and Karen who had the vision 3 years ago. If you were just starting this right now, you'd be behind. You and I have kicked around some quotes today, but I think the philosophy that says we all drink from wells we didn't dig. So there have been a lot of people in the space of women's sports that have come before us that have laid the groundwork for this moment to be real, and they're worth recognizing too.
So what's next for you and the team here?
Oh, we're going to put a shovel in the ground. In 7 days, we're going to launch Marvella Mobile. It's a mobile unit that will travel all around the state of Indiana, year one, then Illinois and other states, into the rural communities where kids might not be able to have the same experience of sports. So we're going to take sports to them because we think it's important for kids to play sports. And so we'll roll out Marvella Mobile during the WNBA All-Star Weekend, which will be great. The plan is to put a shovel in the ground up at we have 110 acres, and get the building started and hopefully open our doors in 2 years and welcome girls who believe that there's a place for them.
Yeah, super exciting.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait to see it all come alive.
Yeah, we want you to come.
I'll be there. Let's talk a bit more about the moment, the surge of women's sports and viewership being up, deals getting bigger, and arenas selling out. What do you think is fueling this shift?
Good energy for sure. Excellent players like Caitlin Clark, of course, is leading so much of the energy, and it's really great to watch and see, plus others. We have amazing female athletes. But here's what you're going to watch, Linnea. Every 4 years when the Olympics happen, there's great fandom for women's sports because you finally get to what? Watch them. But then it dies down until the next Olympics. And what we're watching happen now is, one, you're getting more airtime for women's sports, which is why we're excited about Sports Bra coming to Indiana because they only play women's sports. Viewership matters, eyeballs matter. The second piece is streaming. So now you have this opportunity for fans to engage with athletes and watch their game or follow them as people. Everything's coming together at the right time. Connectivity between fans and players matter. 20 and 30 years ago, we had female athletes who were terrific, but nobody really knew who they were unless they were in your town. All of those things are starting to build this momentum, and then it's becoming popular and accepted by men and women, and that's your best day, is when it's across the board that there are fans. That's what's happened over the course of these years. The fandom and the visibility and the viewership is what matters.
And where do you think we're still behind? Where do we need to spend time to turn this momentum into something truly sustainable?
Some of it starts with our narrative. We have to stop talking about it like it's not happening, or like not comparing it to other sports, not comparing it to men's sports, but what's our reality today and how do we continue to grow and develop it? My sense of things is that it's taken on a life of its own, and it will continue to develop when it comes to fandom of players. Our opportunity, and you watch this with the WNBA and their new expansion teams, the NWSL, and now women's volleyball, the business has to work. This is a business. It's not, a club. It's a business. The data and the research is showing that fans of women's sports have a higher propensity of investing in the brands that support women's sports. Okay, now we're talking business. So, okay, Cheez-Its, you're a sponsor, and now people are going to buy Cheez-Its because they're fans of a team that you sponsor. Or name any brand, name any company. Research demonstrates that, and this is what we're doing with Marvella. We have great sponsors who are coming alongside of Marvella. We'll be in front of fans who will purchase the products based on research because those products support women's sports. That's part of this ongoing momentum.
Truly. And for the family offices, the investors, and the owners listening, or future owners listening, especially those that are exploring team ownership or platform plays or opportunities like this one, what do you want them to know about the opportunity in the women's sports space?
The opportunity is great, and now's the time.
Period.
So don't wait. And then you have to be patient. When you think about people who have invested in men's leagues, they've been around a long time. So they have ridden the ups and the downs of the market, the win-loss record. So you have to have that ability to be patient as the leagues and the teams develop, but understand that it's a business deal. This is really important. Supporting women's sports has to be a good business. years ago, it was benevolence. Well, we better do something for the women too. I'm grateful for that. We would never have had a women's league if there weren't people who were being benevolent. That's the past that we've talked about. Like, that was important then. What's important now is it has to be a good business deal. And it is.
Truly. As you think about not just the business of women's sports, but being a woman in the business of sports,
yes.
Let's put it that way. Have there been harder moments for you? And looking back, is there anything you would pass on to the next generation of women coming up as a leader or as somebody that's progressing as a woman in the sports space?
One of the difficult things of being in sport, a leader in sport, is that the job you do does not necessarily affect the product you're being measured on. That was new for me. Every other place I've led, my work was directly connected to the outcome and the product's success or failure, but my work was connected to that. When you lead in sports, whether you're an owner or a president, when you're in that role, you're hiring a GM and a coach who are coaching the players, but across the board, you're being measured on that outcome, and that's not your job to manage that. That's hard. It took some getting used to.
I think one of the other pieces that's so evident about you, Allison, and how you've grown through your career is you have this continued intellectual curiosity, this sense of wanting to always grow and get better and lead better. Are there habits or routines that you've put in place to help you kind of be at your best and always stay learning and staying sharp?
I do have a lot of routines in my life. One of the books I liked was Atomic Habits. It's a kind of a nice snapshot of how you build in good habits. I'm very structured on purpose because I'd like to make the most of every day I have. I don't take a day at a time. I take my days in quarter days. What am I going to do in this block of the time, in this block, and this block? And because I have multiple priorities that I live into and want to show up for, requires that type of focus that also invites some agility because you can't do life with people and jobs and have, a rigorous approach that prevents you from being available when people need you.
As you think of a day in the life of, is there anything specifically in the morning or in the evening that have become real habitual things that somebody could say, I should integrate that into how I set my day up for success or how I close it? Because I think the bookends are so important.
I start my morning every morning with devotions and focus on God. So every morning that's my mindset and my thought, and it takes on different types of practices from day to day. And then almost every night, without exception, there are a few nights that I miss it, but I have a gratitude journal, and every night I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. So my last thinking before I close out the day is gratitude.
I love those practices, just letting it spill out of your mind and onto a page or into words. I think the act of doing that in whatever system or form that really works for you is so meaningful. Yeah. What about any leaders that are inspiring you right now? Are there people you're learning from or watching closely?
I'm watching everyone closely. I'm watching you closely. I'm watching, the people on our team closely. I feel as if you can learn from everyone around you. You came in today and you're trying to figure out all your technology. I'm like, this woman is calm. And now you're a gymnast, so I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, you never sweat. What do you pick up and glean from people that can inspire you? I am more of that type of person. I feel as if you try to look at one person and learn from their life. Well, you're not living their life and you don't know who they are when they get home. Look for episodic, organic moments to say there's somebody there that is demonstrating something that I'm impressed by or I want to learn from. That suits my style of life better.
Always observing.
Always observing.
And absorbing. You want to.
That's right. When it's good.
Yeah, exactly. No, you keep the boundaries up too, people. Yeah. And what about any books or podcasts or any sources of information or inspiration?
I'm constantly on the hunt for all of what I can learn. Boy, the book Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks is a book I think I've now read 4 times. It's a good transition book with different careers. The Road to Character by David Brooks, also really strong. And then podcasts, I'm pretty disciplined about my car time. Monday through Thursday, I have a specific strategy. Friday is free day, so if I want to listen to whatever I want to listen to, I can. Why wouldn't you want to learn? I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to take advantage of as many moments as possible to learn from other people.
Lifelong learning. That's why I love this part of my job.
I bet. You're good at it.
Thank you. And before we close, I want to ask you one last thing. What's the legacy that you hope Marvella Academy leaves, not just in sports, but in the lives of the girls who will pass through their doors?
Marvella's legacy, I would hope, would be for every girl that comes on this campus, they know that they're special, that they have purpose, that they can choose a path of success, and that we're there to walk beside them.
I'm getting emotional. Anyway.
Did you have that as an athlete anywhere?
You know, I always felt like athletics helped me with teamwork, with structure, with mentorship. But I think there was also a part of it that it teaches you how to move through life independently. And I think it's this nudge from someone saying, I believe in you, that then gives you the internal conviction to say, actually, yes, I can. And I think earlier in life, you need other people to kind of point you in the right direction and other people to give you some of that confidence, because then that grows. And I think for myself, then that grew later in life into something I could hold on my own and then actually share with others. And I think about my own mission in life as being that ripple effect of energy and optimism for the people around me, and particularly for younger women who are on that journey. I think about some of the pillars you've talked about.
Yes.
You know, I've struggled with an eating disorder very early in my life, and I think about what sports does for that. I had parents that went through a tough divorce, and like all these things that we've talked about, like those were all of the helpful coping mechanisms and areas of growth that as a person you can still sit here and get through all that. And we all have ups and downs in our lives. And so for me, that belief, but also the system and structure to grow and thrive as an individual is why that was really meaningful for me. And that's why I'm so passionate about what all of you are doing too.
Good. Well, that's a great story, and we'll want you to come on our podcast to share it, because I think that is exactly what girls need and want and deserve to hear, is somebody whose ripple effect will help them. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Gosh, other side of the seat. I don't know if I'm ready for that. And look, as we wrap up here, we like to close each round with defining brilliance in a few ways. So I'm going to hit you with a quick lightning round. Purpose is?
Purpose is why each person is born.
Leadership is?
Leadership is a privilege and an opportunity to help people determine their purpose and succeed.
Success is?
Success is identifying your purpose and living it.
Brilliant leaders are?
Brilliant leaders are vibrant, a shining example, and impactful.
That's beautiful. I perform at my best when?
I perform my best when I have a important challenge in front of me that aligns with a mission I believe in.
Allison, this was such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your stories, your ideas, and everything that you're building. And would love to have you back sometime.
Great. Thank you. As long as you'll do our podcast on the M Network, the Marvella Network.
You got it. You have my yes on air. And if, Allison, if any of our listeners are moved and they feel called to support, whether through partnership, sponsorship, programming, future fundraising, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you and the Marvella team?
We would invite your listeners to go to the Marvella Sports website and click on the Contact Us button and send us a note.
www.marvellasports.com.
marvellasports.com.
Beautiful. I hope this conversation leaves you thinking about what it really means to lead with purpose, to create the kind of change that outlives the moment and drives lasting impact. I'm Linnea Jungnelius. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. It helps us to bring more brilliant guests like Allison to your feed. And follow Certitude on LinkedIn for more insights. Until next time, stay brilliant at work and don't wait for things to change. Build what you believe in.